right. Hey guys, my name is John. I direct videos for Jubilee Media. You might have seen some of my videos. If you think the other model is the shape of the Earth, that's right now. 2, 1, 2. I wanted to start making videos for my own channel, just to kind of explore some of my own personal interests, to talk about things that I think are interesting or that are on my mind, and to kind of just do it in a less
formal way.
And to see if any of you guys want to kind of listen to what I have to say. Okay, what do I want to achieve with this video? So basically 2020 has been particularly this pandemic. You know, I know a lot of people have different opinions about this pandemic, but I have been staying home most of the time. And I've been consuming a ton of media. My screen time has been insane. But what's more fascinating to me right now is this idea of just the internet in general and all of our individual relationships with the internet and the larger sort of picture that's emerging from that phenomenon.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
A podcast I recently listened to that I thought was really, really good is a podcast called Rabbit Hole. If you're somebody who normally consumes or avoids the New York Times and you stick to more conservative type of media, maybe just give this podcast a try. In the podcast, they talk about what the internet is doing to us. And I think, you know, that's really true. The internet is doing something to us, and it's doing something to me.
Now that I've gotten on the internet, I'd rather be on my computer than doing just about anything.
It's really cool.
It's affecting my mood and it's making me depressed, but the internet is kind of the only window I have into the world right now. And so I think 2020 is just an exciting opportunity while all this chaos is going on. I think this is an opportunity for us as a collective, us as not just as like a country, as the United States, but us as a species, to take a step back and think about our relationship with the internet, and maybe more broadly our relationship with all media. All of this new sophisticated visual cultural language that's going into our minds, and think about how it's manipulating us in good ways and in bad ways. We are exposing ourselves to echo chambers. We all know that's true, but I don't think we know how insidious, how deep rooted that manipulation goes. The point I want to make in this video is just we all need to take a step back, take a breather, and come to some sort of agreement with ourselves that we need to try to be manipulated less. And what I mean by that is, when things happen in the world and things are happening in the news, Donald Trump gives a speech, there's a natural disaster somewhere in the world, we all need to come to those situations with less political ammo. And I think we just have to all acknowledge that people are going to have different opinions than you. People are going to have different beliefs than you. And you're gonna have to allow them to have some different beliefs than you. You're gonna have to allow them to think things different than you. You might be right about some things, and you're gonna have to let some people be wrong, but still look past the things that they may be wrong about and find their humanity. And we're just not doing that right now. And this is obvious. I'm just preaching to the choir. You already know this. This is maybe some good framework for how we can be manipulated less. There was an amazing video that came out. It was an interview with a guy. It was after the election in 2016 when the world was kind of freaking out because Donald Trump got elected. There were some reports and there was some information that came out about some of the media campaigns that were utilized specifically, I think, by Steve Bannon and this group called Cambridge Analytica. In this interview with this guy, I think his name was Steven, he talks about how the content of the internet creates culture. Here's some of what he says in the interview. If you want to change politics, you first have to change culture, because politics flows from culture. If you want to change culture, you have to first understand what the units of culture are. People are the units of culture. So if you want to change politics, you first have to change people. Cambridge Analytica was designing media to kind of lead people down this rabbit hole to these larger opinions or this larger picture of the world. Using Facebook data, we would know what kind of messaging you'd be susceptible to, where you're going to consume that, and then how many times we need to touch you in order to change how you think about something. In addition to having data scientists, psychologists, and strategists, they also had an entire team of creatives. They create content which then gets sent to a targeting team which injects it into the internet. Whatever it is we think this target profile will be receptive to, we will create content on the internet for them to find. And then they see that and they click it and they go down the rabbit hole until they start to think something differently.
Right in there somewhere.
The larger point or the larger insight is how impressionable we are, and that just a meme factory or a Facebook group factory, these really superficial groupings and labels and symbols on the internet could really change not only the way people felt about politics and the world and the story that they were a part of, but also could change
the world.
He's been controlling my actions.
Now, these obviously weren't the only factors, but when we think about the scale of social media, how many people are reachable online, there's a lot of weight to absorb there. There's a lot to think about and reflect on in that reality. And I've thought about that a lot myself. Am I being responsible with the power I wield with my job? And, the answer is sometimes yes, and, a lot of times no. The kind of refreshing thing about all this is we can all admit to a certain degree that we are all impressionable. We all have the capacity to be manipulated. That is the unfortunate truth. But I think there's freedom in that realization if we can all be gracious enough to admit it. Most of us aren't seeing the full picture, and we need to be willing to criticize our own side. Beyond the Cambridge Analytica topic, there are political forces in the world who are clearly running disinformation campaigns. They're trying to push you to the edge, push you to the far right, push you to the far left. What can we learn from that? We need to resist being pushed to the edges. We need to learn how to occupy the middle of the political spectrum. The answers, or at least the solutions to the cultural gridlock that we're experiencing now, are not on the far left and they're not on the far right. They are in the middle, in this uncomfortable realm known as compromise. I would say that there's as much resistance to compromise on the left side of the political spectrum in America as there is on the conservative side.
Do you think it's feasible to get both parties to agree on the Green New Deal when we can't even agree on the Paris Climate Agreement?
I think there are some parts of the Republican Party that are just kind of beyond winning over.
What do you think of this idea of defunding the police?
I actually don't think it's far enough. I personally believe we should abolish the police.
Protesters in Seattle are holding several city blocks.
Why are you down here?
Keeping a border or a wall between, cops, whoever wants to hurt these people.
The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone was a failed 4-week Democrat experiment by the radical left.
The other party is attacking the very principles on which our nation was founded. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the rule of law.
We need to convince ourselves that the world isn't ending, and that the other side of the political aisle is not your mortal enemy. There are militias forming on both sides of the political aisle, and they're showing up at protests, and I feel like we are close to a tipping point. A few people have died in the last few weeks because of some of the violence that's been at some of these protests. And
honestly, I hate to say it, but I see a civil war right around the corner. That shot felt like the beginning of a war.
I don't want more of that. I hope that you don't want more of that. I hope you don't want a civil war. I hope you want peace. So if you're watching the internet, or you're watching something on the internet, and it's giving you this impression of the other side being evil, insane, crazy, subhuman, you are being radicalized. Maybe not intentionally by the creators of that content, but you are being radicalized. It's up to all of us now to make a decision to stop being radicalized by what we're consuming on the internet, and to explore this giant space that exists in the middle. If all of us are over here and all of us are over here, there's all this room in the middle for new identities, compromises, things to emerge. I don't know if any of this made any sense, but yeah. If you watched this, thank you. And until next time.
The internet gave us a whole world of exciting new possibilities. So I guess this is a story of how it changed our lives. Maybe it will yours too.